Hey folks, we've got a lot to catch up on in terms of public history and public history practice, but one of the things that I wanted to get your views on today is the results of a poll that was published in the Wall Street Journal. I know that you all are avid followers of the Wall Street Journal, but it is what type of voter are you? Take our opinion poll to find out. But it's based upon University of Chicago, Wall Street Journal, and an NRC poll of 1,200 people. And it reveals some very interesting things, which is why I want to go ahead and bore you with it today and get your thoughts about it. I don't normally, these kind of what kind of anything are you polls are not terribly useful, but this one actually has some interesting things in it for us. Mainly because one of the questions is about history and is about how proud is one of American history. Now, you don't normally come across those kind of questions when delving into a poll about political persuasions, about political ideas, about political leanings. And this one is generally attempting to gauge the realignment in American political identity, not along partisan lines, Republican versus Democrat, but along more, we can use this term softly, ideological lines, from traditional liberal on the left and traditional conservative on the right, but to also throw in all of the faster growing sections. And they've determined them as being disaffected populists, which is more than a quarter, 28% of all respondents is a disaffected populist, somebody who's even further to the left than a traditional liberal, a libertarian, and then the populists. Oh, I disaffected pluralists, sorry. So disaffected pluralists, populists, libertarians, and of course your traditional conservatives and your traditional liberals. So one of the interesting findings was obviously about how disaffected pluralists are the largest part of the population at 28% and growing, and how they tend to be much further to the left of traditional liberals. Now, why does that matter to us at all? Because that's not exactly why you tune in. The big thing for me is this question about and why they included it now. This big question about how proud are you of American history? And that the less proud you are of American history, the more to the disaffected pluralist side in terms of the state of American civics and the relationship of Americans to American political culture, the more to the left of that you're going to be, the less proud you are of American history. So there's a lot packed into that. Go to the Wall Street Journal. Go to the Wall Street Journal online. Take the poll. Let me know where it is you land on it. But the more interesting question, again, of course, is not just including this question about history as being a political identifier, as being something that will help shape your view of the role of government in your life or lack of it, the amount of regulation that you want to see, the amount of permissiveness that you want to see in society in terms of enabling people's rights, immigration, things like that. But that this question about how proud you are of American history is an identifier of identity, or at least as far as the folks who constructed this poll is concerned. Now, one of the interesting things about it is that is when you break down the numbers, that the younger the respondent is, the more likely they are not to be proud of American history. It's interesting. There is a group of essentially Xers, and then there's younger people, sort of under the age of 35. That the more likely you are to be an Xer, and the more likely you are to be under the age of 35, the less likely you are to be proud of American history, and that influences the way you see the role of government in the world, and the nature of rights and who gets to exercise them, those kind of things. So what I'm sort of waiting for, you can sort of time with a stopwatch, right, are those folks who are part of the history establishment, who will blame that on the fact that people don't know their history. So the answer to that is that we need to get more history education out there, right? People just don't know their history, which is why they're not proud of it. I'd like to posit exactly the opposite. I would like to posit the fact that younger people, in fact, know American history more authentically, understand American history more accurately, and therefore there is less to be proud of. They can be realists about it. There can be a level of skepticism in there. I'm not going to go ahead and push it into cynicism, but maybe there's a little bit of that in there too. But I think that what it suggests is that the more people have an unvarnished approach to history, and not the patriot myth, not the fictional and fictive version of American history that has dominated American mainstream culture for the last 60 or 70 years. Those folks tend to be proud of American history, and it informs their political identity. However, the more that you have an authentic approach to history, the more you have an accurate approach to American history, the more you can contextualize it, the more you can situate it in a comparative context in which you are divorcing your idea of exceptionalism. And there is a question in there about American exceptionalism too. And these two questions are directly related. That the less attached you are to any kind of notions of American exceptionalism, and therefore you are more inclined to see yourself as a citizen of the world, given the fact that we are all tied into this together, that all of these lines drawn on a map are essentially artificial in the first place. But again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. The way that I keep seeing this in terms of public history is being able to spark a more deep, more authentic, more engaged conversation about American history, why it matters, why it's important, rather than this celebratory presentation. And I think that for anybody who is engaged, like say in the commemoration of the American Revolution and the founding of the United States, should find these numbers to be a little sobering, especially as they look around themselves at their many events and they see a whole bunch of old white people, or they see a whole bunch of young white people dressed up in 18th century clothing doing their cosplay, whatever. But none of it is about understanding the past better and understanding that relationship between then and now. And that when you get into a question about being proud of the United States and being proud of our history, that is, I think, a complicated word. That there are, what part of American history can you be proud of? Can you be proud of John Brown? Can you be proud of Nat Turner? Be proud of Sojourner Truth? Be proud of Harriet Tubman? Is that where you draw your pride? Frederick Douglass? Is that where you draw your pride? Or is it the George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, these guys cannot do any wrong. Benjamin Franklin was an enslaver? Oh, who knew? They were men of their time. If you're part of that crowd, well, that's a whole different conversation. So it's a difference between celebrating American history as it has always been told, as that mainstream, celebratory, plucky patriot myth defeated the greatest empire the world had ever seen in order to be able to create the greatest country on earth that will bring liberty and freedom to all people. None of it's true, but you find out that it's not true. Then you tend to have a much different approach to American history. And that is less important, I think, about whether you have pride in America's past than if you have faith in America's future and have faith in the fact that we can use the lessons of that past. We can #vote with memory, right? We can use the lessons from that past in order to shape a better future because we've effing learned from it. And we are engaged in informed conversations to continue to learn more about it in holistic and intersectional and inclusive ways. So anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on this. I would love for you to go ahead and take a look at the Wall Street Journal piece. And again, let me know what you think, particularly as it relates to how proud of you are you of American history, and how much, and if you are, awesome, you do you. In what way? What does that mean to you? If you're not, why not? Tell me, let me know. I'm going to share it with my students too. If you're not, why not? And more to the point, for public history, we have to do this extra step. It's got to be about how does it matter today to you in your lives? How does that impact you? How does that impact your approach to politics? How does that impact your view of how you are going to engage, how you're going to hold leaders accountable, how you are going to participate yourself in our democratic project? What is the role of your pride or lack thereof in American history? Does that spur you on maybe to greater political activity along a spectrum? I'd love to know your thoughts on it. So let me know.